Hello, grade 9. Today we're going to talk about a new lesson, which is solving inequalities. So instead of solving equations, because we've been talking about linear equations and how to solve equations in general, and how just to make a certain variable in one of the sides, so either left right side or right side, and then we make the rest of the equation on another side, and then therefore finding the value of it. Today we're going to talk about solving inequalities, okay? So before we start solving inequalities and having examples on that, we're going to talk about the sign itself, the sign of an inequality. Inequality means a range of something, a range of numbers. So basically we say, for example, x is greater than 2. That means any number is greater than 2 that represents x. So here, for example, let's talk about this first. Now here, example, we have x plus 3, and then we have this sign here, and then we have 2. So here's how we read this. X plus 3 is greater than 2. Now, we have many students that used to study in Arabic schools, which might this would cause them a bit of confusing. So instead of just memorizing the name of the sign, you just memorize how to say it. Now, this sign can be read as the following. Always check these edges. Now, it looks like an arrow. Where the arrow is big, where the arrow is wide, you always put the greater value. Where the arrow is small, so where the angle is where you put the smaller number. So if you're going to read it from left to right, it's x plus 3 greater than 2. Okay, from right to left, it's 2 is less than x plus 3. Okay, another example. Let's say we have 7x is less than 28. Or we can say 28. 28 is greater than, because here's where it's bigger, and here's where the angle of the sign, 7x. Now it's the same if we just added a line in here. It becomes x plus 3 is greater than or equal to 2. 7x is less than or equal to 28. Okay, so both conditions applies. It's greater than or equal, or greater than and equal. Now let's have an example for this. Let's say that we have x plus 2 is greater than 12, and we want to solve this inequality. Now think of this sign as an equal sign, as an equation. What you would do, we would just take this 2 and we move it into the other side with the negative sign, right? So this is exactly what we're going to do here. X is greater than 12 minus 2. So it becomes x is greater than 10. Here we are. Now this way you solved the inequality. Okay. Now there's one point that you need to take care of when you're solving inequality. Now here, using the normal equations, we can add numbers to both sides, we can subtract numbers to both sides, we can multiply sorry, we can multiply a constant to both sides or by both sides, and we can divide a number by both sides. We can do exactly the same in inequality, as long as the number is positive. I'm talking about multiplying and division and dividing. So there is one thing. If you're dividing or multiplying by a negative number, that means, or that causes a change in the direction of the sign. Let's have an example for that. What does that mean? Okay. Okay, so we said the safe things, let's call it the safe things to do. Okay, here we can add or subtract, which is the same basically, just using a different sign number. And then we can multiply, we can also divide. Okay, but here we're going to say by positive number. Okay, and we can simplify both sides. What does that mean? Simplifying both sides means just adding the uh, alike terms, for example, or simplifying it by if you have a um, a large number that you want to simplify by, for example, dividing by a certain number, you can do this for both sides, which lead us to the same things. So here's an example for this, for the safe things that we can do that does not change the sign of the inequality, it keeps it the same. So for example, if we said 3x is less than 7 plus 3. Now here we have a certain um, mathematical procedure, let's say, to do or to use, which is just 7 plus 3. It's something that we can do, which, like I said before, it's called simplifying a side or both sides. So here we have alike terms, we have two constants that we can add together to become one number, which is simplifying it. So we'll be having 3x that is less than 10. Okay, now another thing to do is, how can we just leave the x in one side without affecting the inequality? We can just what we said before when we talked about the equations, we need to check the coefficient of the variable. The coefficient of x here is 3. So by dividing both sides by this number, we're going to eliminate it by just make it 1. So here it becomes x is less than 10 over 3, because here 3 over 3 becomes 1, and 10 over 3 is 10 over 3. Now here we did not change the sign of the inequality. It's always less than 3x less than 10, x is less than 10 over 3. Okay, these are the safe things to do, or the safe products and multiplication, products and addition. Let's have here. Okay, let's have an example. We have 2y plus 7 is less than 12. Now here I'm going to show you another thing that might change the direction of the sign of the inequality, even if it wasn't just multiplying or dividing by a negative number. This is another case, a second case that might this happen. The second case is, like I told you before, basically what you're doing is, even if you changed the places of the right side and the left side, you're going to change the direction of the inequality too, because we said that we're always looking at the sides of the inequality. Which one is bigger? That's where the bigger number is, or where the bigger equation is. Now here, for example, or the bigger variable, let's call it, sorry. Here, for example, we have 2y plus 7 is less than 12. What about if we said 12 is greater than 2y plus 7? Now here we're describing the same thing, the same inequality, but just by flipping the places here, or swapping the places, we need to change the direction of the sign. Okay? um, okay, let's have an example using, sorry, okay, here's an example. Here, this example is negative 2y is less than negative 8. Okay, now here, what we usually do is, again, we need to eliminate the number right here, which is the coefficient of y, which is in this case a negative number. As long as it's a negative number, that means we're going to divide by it. So we're going to divide or multiply this inequality by a negative number. Once we do this, we're going to flip the sign or just change the direction of the sign, of the inequality sign. So here, for example, we have negative 2. So we're going to divide. Let's use another color. We're just going to divide both sides by negative 2. Here is negative 2 and here is by negative 2. Okay, this becomes y. Now, as long as you did something negative here, I'm not talking about addition or subtraction. We're only talking about multiplying or dividing by a negative number. Now, here we divided by a negative number, so the less than sign here becomes greater than 4. So this is the other case that we're going to use to solve these inequalities. Okay, let's have just a different example. Okay, here, let's say that we have x minus 3 over 2, okay, is less than negative 5. Okay, what is the first thing we're going to do, or you would do, if this was equal? Always think this way, so it becomes easier for you. Basically, we're going to eliminate the denominator that we have on the left side, which is the 2. How can we get rid of it, or how can we eliminate it? It's by multiplying both sides by 2. So here we multiply by 2. Okay, by multiplying both sides by number 2, we're going to have x minus 3 is less than minus 10, right? Okay, now what's the next step to do? Here, we're going to check what is the number that is accompanying the variable, which is x. It is negative 3. Now, is this number multiplied by x, or is it added into the x? It is added into the x. So negative 3 is added into x. So how can we get rid of it? How can we eliminate it? We're going to do this by adding 3 to both sides, or what we might call it just taking it to the other side with a different sign, or the opposite sign. So the sign here is negative, so it becomes positive. So we'll be having x is less than, it's still less than, because here we still didn't multiply and we didn't divide by a negative number. First we did it by 2 and it was positive. Here we're just adding it or subtracting it. So we're having negative 10 plus 3. So it is x less than negative 7. Okay, here x is less than negative 7. Now we solved our inequality. As long as we know what are the values that x is as an inequality, because x here doesn't represent just one value, it represents many values. It could be any number that is less than negative 7. Okay, so you will find an assignment. It's a worksheet to work on. It will be, it includes too many inequalities to solve. Please work on them. If you have any questions, just contact me.